If you clicked on this video, you wanted to know how my first breakup worked out. And of course, I'm going to tell you. So, let's just say, you used to go to this high school, the school. Let's call it Lampshade High. So at Lampshade High, it was what it was, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. I loved the place, can't even lie, but, first day ever at the school, I'm like, let's go, I'm pumped, I'm trying to be everything I can here, to be the best I can. So, you know how it is. I'm like everything I can do. So first day of school. First day went great, My parents couldn't pick me up after school, so I had to take the bus. And this was the one fatal mistake my parents should have never made. This is where I met, let's just call her Blondie. So, you know how the bus has 2 seats, right? My friend wasn't there that day, on my side, but Blondie was on the other side. So, she actually introduced herself to me. She was like, hi, hi, how are you? What's your name, stuff like that. She was talking about, what's your favorite color? What do you want to do when you grow up? Stuff like that. Like, she was trying to start a conversation with me. And at the time, I liked this, I thought this other girl was pretty, but over time, I started to like her, and I really shouldn't have. So, after, maybe a month of us talking, she was like, F it, I've gotten so comfortable around you, I just need to tell you this. She said, I would love for us to date. And I'm thinking in my head, you did well for yourself, Mason. Because she was a 7 out of 10, in my opinion. She's like, and you did well for yourself, Mason. And she didn't seem crazy at the time. She was crazy, but still, so, I'm talking to her, telling her how it is, and then she comes up with that, and I'm like, I was thinking about it for a little, and I move on from the subject, and eventually, she asked me again, I move on, eventually, she asked me it again, and it keeps on going on until the very end, when I'm about to get off the bus, and I said yes to her. So, we ended up dating for a year, a year, at this time, and after school we were like, I think it'd be best for us to break up, have fun during summer, see if we can find anyone else we might like. So we're like, okay, I'm fine with that. It's mutual. A new school year starts, I'm hyped, I'm hyped, which I never truly am anymore for a school year. But, I'm hyped. I'm all excited, yes, I finally get to see this girl again. I've been waiting for this, for a little bit. I've been thinking about it for the past, month. And then she ends up dating one of the new kids. It was the first sign of, maybe you should move on. But I didn't. I talked to the new kid. He was really chill. So, I wasn't about to disrupt them or anything. I'm like, okay, I'll just wait it out. I'll play the long game, not the gay long game, just the long game. I was just waiting for a while, until the last 3 months of the school year. Last 3 months, and I'm like, fuck, dude. I'm like, come on, dude. Why don't y'all just break up already? Eventually, they do. And new kid's like, well, you broke up with me? You know what, F it. I'm gonna go date your best friend, Big Nose. I'm gonna call her that because that was her main trait. So Blondie's like, okay, I guess, you know, she moved on. And I don't know what happened, you know, we've been still talking on the bus, you know, we've been chopping it up on the bus. You know, we're talking. You know how it is. You know, she's like, I still like you. I still do. You know, I'm like, okay. She's like, shit. You know, she straight up said, she straight up said shit. She was like mad at herself for liking me or some shit like that. You know, I'm like, okay, I guess you could be mad at yourself for liking me. You know, so she ended up, you know, do you want to date again? You know, I thought that for a while, thought for a little bit, then I said yeah. So, 2 weeks into this new relationship, you know, everything's going great so far. You know, I might have said a couple things that I, you know, regret, and it might have led up to this scenario. Because, you know, we got into a couple arguments, like one, you know, and I said something I shouldn't have. I'll take accountability for that. But, oh crap. Anyways, I'll take accountability for that. You know, I shouldn't have said some things. So if she ever sees this video, I'm sorry for saying those things. Those things were mean. I'm not trying to get you back though, because you're crazy. Anyways, so, you know, chop it up. 2 weeks into this relationship, I can't even lie. 2 weeks in, she goes and dates my friend at the same time. So back to she just cheats on me. I mean, she just cheats on me for no reason. And I'm like, what the heck, dude? I'm like, what the hell? What did I do to deserve this? You know, she's not giving me answers. She's not even talking to me. She ended up stopping riding the bus. I don't know. No, she ended up sitting next to her brother, the younger brother, on the bus to get away from me. And I'm like, bro, what the heck? I'm like, what did I do? You know, maybe I shouldn't have said those things. My bad. You know, I wanted to talk to her. She did not want to talk to me. When I say did not, she did not. For no circumstances. So, you know, I'm like, okay, you're crazy. You know, I'm not going to date you if you're crazy. You know, and eventually we just stopped talking. You know, and I hate it because I was good friends with her younger brother. You know, and after the argument, she just spread so much hate on me to her younger brother. And he ended up hating me for that. And I really just disliked her for that. Just, oh my god. Like, I'm fine if we can't stay dating, but if you're gonna do that to, you know, me and, you know, your younger brother, we're friends, we're chill, and you really did me dirty. Anyways, I ended up moving to another school 2 years in. Not 2 years out, you know. After 2 years, I ended up switching those schools. And I went to another school. And I will tell you about that too. So, that'll be in the next video though. So, and it's gonna be about all the adventures I had with the school. In this school. Anyways, bye.